Good? Cool. All right. Hey, everyone. Today I'm going to be talking to you about Paper.js. For those of you who don't know, Paper.js is a 2D graphics library. And I've been playing with it since early on in junior phase. My main goal today is really to show you guys just how easy it is to jump in and use this. And with just a few lines of code, make some cool looking things. I've mainly been using it to make like these cool looking geometric images. And it can also be used to make some simple games and animations. So let's get started. All right. Before I really go into Paper.js, I want to take you guys to math class for a sec. So we'll talk a little bit about vectors, because vectors is really what drives Paper.js to work in the first place. It's really one of the main advantages of using Paper.js. So a vector, for those of you who don't remember like high school math or whatever, a vector is a quantity with magnitude and a direction. And it's best represented by an arrow. So the magnitude of the vector will be represented by the length of the arrow, and the direction of the vector will be represented by the direction of the arrow. Yeah. Okay. So and you can take vectors and just like numbers, you can add them together. And all that means is we're going to line the vectors up head to tail. And then, as you can see, whatever the vector coming from the beginning of A to the end of B, see here's A transposed and B transposed right there. That's vectors A plus B. And so this is kind of what's driving vector graphics, which is what Paper.js deals in. And it's one of the main advantages of using it. You can think about your graphics in more mathematical terms, which I really like. Okay, so, so one thing you can do, here's an example of how I use vectors. There's our canvas over there, that black rectangle. And the point 0, 0 is up in the top left. We give ourselves a vector A, pointing to our center here. And if we follow this pseudocode here, if we draw a circle at A plus B, rotate B, draw another circle, and keep going over and over again, we can get a pattern looking like that. So you can see with just like some very simple, and obviously the colors, there's some stuff going on with the colors too, but really, I'm not going to show you the code, but that pseudocode pretty much represents exactly what was going on. It's quite simple. All right, another advantage that Paper gives you is this project tree. And it's a really neat way to organize all of your different shapes and paths that you're gonna have. So let's start at the bottom. Let's start with this concept of a path. A path is just a shape or a line, or really just any line that it can close on itself, meaning making a shape. It doesn't have to. That's kind of the most fundamental object we're dealing with. It's kind of like the atom of your project. These paths can be grouped into groups. So a group is just a collection of paths. That's really all it is. And then groups can be, a layer is any combination of groups and paths. And really all a layer is just a group with added functionality that you can layer them on top of one another. Yeah, so that's that. So here's a quick example. So let's say we have 3 paths. Let's say we have a green circle, a red heart, and a blue diamond. And they're all grouped in our group 2. So if we just call group2.rotate, it'll rotate the group. So you can perform an operation on a group or a layer, and it's going to go in and perform that operation on every path you have contained within that group or layer. Okay, so another really good reason to use Paper.js is the docs are just great. They're written, as you can see from that example over there, in the docs, the console.log function sends text to the console of the browser and is very useful to debug scripts. So just so you guys know, console.log is great. So yeah, these docs are really extensive. They're really built out. They're honestly better than any docs I've seen for anything out there. And there are all these examples on their website where you can just click source and it'll show you the source code for this wonderful example. You can mess with it, you can play with the source code, and you can see what happens to the example right there. It's really fun to play with. I'd highly recommend it. All right, so just very quickly, using Paper. Bower install it, simple enough. And the main idea here is you're going to have a canvas tag somewhere in your HTML, and then you have your script, that second script tag there, just have their canvas attribute point to the ID of your canvas. And now whatever you have going on in your PaperScript is going to be thrown onto that canvas. Okay, so one thing, if you'll notice that second script tag has type text PaperScript, not text JavaScript. So let's talk about PaperScript for a sec. The makers of Paper.js made this new language called PaperScript. It's really just JavaScript, but it has a few additions to it. The first and most useful part of it is that you can do the plus, minus, times, and divide work on vectors now. Works not just on numbers and strings, but you can do it with these point objects, which are really just vectors. So as you can see, you just add vector 1 and vector 2, you get a new vector. And so without PaperScript, you'd have to treat these as arrays, and it would take a few extra lines of code or you have to write your own functions to do it. So this just makes it really simple and really easy to read and write. Another thing it does is that if you happen to have multiple PaperScript scripts on your page, it's going to run each of them in their own scope. So this provides some pros and cons. The reason why they did it is if you have multiple scripts, it's so that the variables you declare in one script aren't going to pollute your global scope or pollute the scope of your other scripts. And so you don't really have to worry about your variable names too much. The con, though, is it makes it really difficult to modularize your code. If you're making some really complicated script for a particular canvas, you really can't break it up. You have to have it in one file, which is a bummer. But it is possible to use Paper.js without PaperScript. You just kind of lose the vector. You lose the plus, minus, times, divide on the vectors. But I haven't tried that yet. OK, let's jump in. Oh, boy. OK, let's hurry up and jump in. So OK, so I'm gonna take you through quickly how to make a path. So you just use the path constructor. And there are a lot of ways to add points to this, but here's a simple one. Add a point. Nothing's going to show up yet, because we only have one point in our path. But as soon as you add another point, you get a line. And then if you add a third point, you get another line. That's really it. There are lots of functions you can call in these paths. You can change the color. You can smooth the path out, so instead of a check mark, it'll look more like a Nike swoosh or something. Yeah. All right. And also, in addition to just making lines, you can make shapes. Path.circle. Give it a center and a radius, and it gives you a circle. It's really that easy. OK, so now let's talk about animation. To animate something in Paper.js, all you have to do is call this function onFrame. And whatever you put inside that function is going to happen 60 times a second. And that's it. That's all you have to do to animate things. So let me quickly show you an example of this. I think it's right here. Yeah. So we're going to create a circle. We are going to we're going to have give that circle a velocity, and we're going to define an acceleration. So we have some physics going on. 60 times a second, we're going to move the circle, the velocity, and then we're going to move the velocity by the acceleration. And I'll show you what happens. That. That's it. So that circle's kind of faint, but do you see it? Yeah. There you go. It starts with a velocity, and then it accelerates downward, just like something would near the surface of the Earth under gravity, just like downward acceleration. OK. Sorry, physics. Yeah. So OK, now let's talk about events. Similar to acceleration, all you have to do is call an, if you want to have an event happen tied to a click, you just call an onMouseDown event. And whatever you put in there is going to happen when you click. This event parameter in onMouseDown contains useful information, like the point where you click. That's really the most useful thing. And so you see I just added one little thing to our scripts where now in addition to what I was doing before, when I click somewhere, a circle appears there. It creates a new circle. And it erases the old one. It changes the position of the circle to wherever you click. OK. Yeah. Oh, right. So we're going to combine. This is my favorite part of the presentation. Is where I get to show off. So this is a little thing I made, just combining the little things I've told you about. So if you can see these two buttons here, we got an orange planet and a white satellite. So and we can switch the modes. So right now we're in planet mode. So if I click somewhere and drag, I'll create a planet. I can move this around. But the fun comes when I create a satellite. I'm going to click where I want the satellite to begin, and I'll drag. So this line is going to tell us, I'm going to launch this satellite. The longer the line, the faster the satellite's going to go. and I can provide a direction. And when I let go, it launches that satellite, and it's influenced by the planet's gravity. Just like what I showed you before, it's just the acceleration isn't the same all the time. The acceleration depends on where the satellite is. Where did it go? Oh, there it is. It came back. But yeah, I can create more planets, and they'll all of a sudden be attracted to that one. I can launch like a whole bunch of satellites. Oh. All right. Looks like I don't have time to show you my bonus section on images, but I would just check out the examples on paperjs.org. They're really nice. Thank you.